All right, let's just forget everything you think you know about computers, about pointing and clicking on icons. Today, we're going to pull back the curtain and step into the world of the command line. We're going to talk about Linux, but not just as an operating system. No, we're talking about it as a philosophy, a core belief that you and only you should have absolute, total control over your machine. So let's get into it.
Think about it for a sec. You're a developer, right? You build your awesome app, you push it out to the cloud on something like AWS or Vercel, and poof, it just works. But have you ever really stopped and asked yourself, where is it? Where does my app actually live? What's the invisible world it's running on? Well, the answer, pretty much every single time, is Linux. And we're not talking about a small majority here. We're talking about nearly 100% of the digital world that matters. The servers delivering this very content to you right now, the supercomputers solving the world's biggest scientific problems, and yeah, the toolkits used by the world's most sophisticated hackers, it's all built on this one single foundation. See, this isn't some niche system, it's the invisible engine that powers our entire world.
To really get why, let's try an analogy. Think of Windows or macOS like a fully furnished apartment. It's nice, right? It's comfortable, everything works the moment you move in, but you can't exactly knock down a wall if you want to. Linux? Well, Linux is a giant box of Legos. It just gives you all the fundamental building blocks and says, go on, build whatever you can possibly imagine, whether that's a tiny little drone or a massive digital fortress.
And when you need to build that digital fortress, when you're operating at the highest levels of security and performance, that kind of control is everything. We're talking about having state actor levels of command over your machine. And at that level, clicking on pretty icons it's an indirect action. It's way too slow, it's imprecise. To have real power, you need a direct line to the computer's brain, the kernel.
And that direct line, that way of talking to the kernel, that's the command line. But please, don't think of it as just typing instead of clicking. It's a completely different way of interacting with a machine. You're basically learning a new language, one that lets you ask incredibly precise and incredibly powerful questions.
So let's look at a classic first command, ls-la. I know, at first glance, it just looks like cryptic nonsense. But it's not. It's actually a sentence, a very logical one. ls is the verb, list. The -l and -a parts, those are kind of like adjectives or flags that change the verb. -l asks for a long list, with all the juicy details, and -a asks to see all the files, even the hidden ones.
So that short little string of characters, ls-la, it's not just code, it's a sentence. You are speaking directly to the machine, and you're giving it this very specific order. It's a direct, unambiguous command. You're having a real conversation, and the machine gives you exactly what you asked for. No confusion, no misinterpretation.
And here's why that conversation is so important. A regular user, clicking around in a file explorer, they see a couple of files. Fine. But the terminal user, the one who asked the right question, sees everything. They see who owns every file, who can change it, and more importantly, they see the hidden stuff, that .git directory with the project's entire history, or the critical .env file, which, by the way, often holds secret API keys and passwords. It's literally the difference between being blind and having X-ray vision.
This brings us to what I think is the most important mental shift of all. It's about totally redefining your relationship with technology. So let me ask you, are you a passenger or are you the driver? Think of your mainstream operating systems, your Windows and your macOS, as a brand new Tesla. It's amazing, it's comfortable, it's sleek, it automates a ton for you, a fantastic experience. But the hood is locked. You're not supposed to get in there and start tinkering with the engine. You are a passenger, and you're just trusting the system to do its job. Linux, on the other hand, that's like being handed a Formula One car. It might show up in pieces that you have to put together yourself. There's no radio, no cup holders, nothing like that. It is built for one thing, and one thing only: raw, unadulterated performance. It gives you total control because in this world, you're not just the driver, you're also the mechanic, able to tune the engine while you're flying down the track.
Okay, so if we're going to be the driver and the mechanic, we probably need to understand the blueprint, right? Let's take a quick look under the hood and break down the foundational architecture that makes all this amazing control possible.
It all really boils down to three super elegant principles. First, everything, and I mean everything, starts from a single point called root, which is just represented by a /. No more C drives or D drives. Second, Everything is treated as a file. Your mouse, your keyboard, your network connection. To the system, they're all just files that it can read from and write to. And third, right at the very core of it all, you have the kernel, the brain that manages every single thing.
As you can see here, the journey of a command is just beautifully simple. You type your command into the shell, that's your command line interface. The shell takes that request and sends it to the kernel, the system's brain. And then finally, the kernel gives a direct order to the hardware, the processor, the memory, the storage, to actually do the thing. It's a clean, direct, and powerful chain of command.
So this is where it all comes together. This is the good stuff. We've talked about individual commands, but the true superpower of Linux, the thing that makes it so amazing, isn't just using these tools by themselves, it's combining them.
And you do this with a single, simple character, the vertical bar, or what everyone calls the pipe. The concept is just genius in its simplicity. The pipe literally takes the output from one command and funnels it, or pipes it, directly into the next command as its input. This lets you chain a bunch of simple, single-purpose tools together to do incredibly complex things.
Let's see this in action, because this is cool. The first command, cat log.txt, would normally just dump a gigantic log file onto your screen. We're talking maybe millions of lines. A nightmare. But instead, we use that pipe to send that whole river of data directly over to the grep command. Grep acts like a filter, and it only shows us the lines that contain the exact phrase, failed password. So in milliseconds, you've just found every single failed login attempt in a massive file. That is a superpower.
So, let's bring it all home. We've seen that Linux is really about a philosophy of total, absolute control. We've traded that comfy apartment for a box of Legos, that automated Tesla for a screaming F1 car. You now get the basic blueprint, and you've seen the true superpower of connecting tools together. We've basically handed you the keys. So, the only question left is the one we started with. Are you a passenger or are you a driver?